Welcome to Concept Craft. We are presenting step-by-step videos training to crack your certification exam, so you can gain the confidence to take on any accounting challenge. Now let's begin our today's lesson.
Using projects. Learning outcomes. In this lesson, we'll cover using the project's functionality in QuickBooks Online Plus and Advanced. Topics: the benefits of the project's feature, enabling and setting up the project's feature, converting sub-customers to projects, creating a project in the project center, batch importing projects, adding transactions to a project, the Project Center dashboard, the Project Center detail view, linking labor costs to a project, projects FAQs, getting a snapshot view. Many clients get paid by the project, job, or gig, so they use sub-customers in QuickBooks Online to track jobs and profitability. This usually works fine, but sometimes clients don't have the time to customize and run the reports that show how well each job is performing. Surely there's a better option? How can QuickBooks Online help? With the projects feature in QuickBooks Online Plus and Advanced, clients can see all their financial activity in one place, categorized by individual projects and the activities within that project. Let's take a look at how it works. The benefits of the projects feature. The projects feature in QuickBooks Online offers similar to tracking jobs by customers and sub-customers. The projects feature allows your clients to keep track of multiple jobs per customer, access active projects and add transactions to them, run reports on the profitability of each job by categorizing each transaction to individual jobs. What are the benefits of using projects compared to using sub-customers? Unlike sub-customers, projects allow your client to track billable and non-billable hours alongside other project expenses, manage multiple projects at once, quickly run the following reports: project profitability, time cost by employee or vendor, unbilled time and expenses. These features are all part of the Project Center, which gives you and your client a snapshot view of the status of all their projects, as well as more detailed data on each individual project. To open the Project Center, select Projects from the left-hand navigation. We'll cover the Project Center in more detail later in the lesson. When would it be better to use sub-customers? In some instances, it could be better to use sub-customer categorization. Here are some things you or your clients can't do with projects. Create hierarchies in projects, because they just support one level. However, clients can add a project to any level of sub-customer if needed. Allocate a separate address to a project. If clients need a separate address that can also show up on forms or email address, use sub-customers or create a sub-customer with the project address and add the project under the sub-customer. Pro Advisor Tip: you can learn about how to track activities using sub-customers in the Tracking Profitability by Customers lesson. Enabling and setting up the projects feature. Clients need to configure a few key settings before using the projects feature. Select the headings below to find out more. Turning on projects. Configuring project settings. Turning on projects. In QuickBooks Online Plus and Advanced, the projects feature is turned on by default. However, if clients converted a file from QuickBooks Desktop, they may need to turn it on manually. To do this, go to the Advanced tab in Account and Settings. In the Projects area, use the slider to enable/disable the projects feature. By contrast, the projects feature is turned off by default in the Your Books Company in QuickBooks Online Accountant. To turn it on, select Advanced in Company Settings, then scroll to Projects. Note that once you turn on the projects feature in Your Books in QuickBooks Online Accountant, you can't turn it off again. As you can see in the next image, there's no pencil icon to edit the setting once it's enabled. If you do turn on projects in your books, you'll see a warning that this setting is permanent. Configuring project settings. There are a few settings in Account and Settings that you or your clients should check to make sure all the project's functions features are optimized. To access these settings, select the Expenses tab, then select the Bills and Expenses section. The relevant settings are shown here. Show Items table on expense and purchase forms. This setting adds the item details grid to purchase transactions, improving job costing, and allowing clients to create more detailed reports. Track expenses and items by customer. This adds the customer column on purchase transactions. Projects will be included in the drop-down. This is a critical setting that needs to be turned on if your client is using projects. Make expenses and items billable. If your client is doing a time and materials job, they'll want this column on the purchase forms to mark them billable so that purchase transactions can be brought onto the invoice. Converting sub-customers to projects. Now let's look at how you or your client can convert existing sub-customers to projects. Select the headings below to find out more. What information will and won't transfer? When your client converts a sub-customer to a project, only the sub-customer display name carries over. The following information isn't transferred: addresses, contacts, phone numbers, tax codes, terms, payment and billing information attachments. In addition, addresses, tax codes, and terms revert to the parent customer settings. What do you need to set up? As you saw earlier, projects must be turned on in order to convert existing sub-customers to projects in QuickBooks Online. The sub-customers you want to convert also need to be set up to bill parent customer, be active and not sub-customers, not have any active or inactive sub-customers. How do you carry out the conversion? To carry out the conversion, below the money bar in the Customer tab in the Sales Center, select Convert Now after the message that says, "Do you organize sub-customers as projects?" You can convert the first level of sub-customers into their own project. In this example, the customer commercial customer has 3 sub-customers. Note that by hovering over these sub-customers, a pop-up shows the number of transactions for each transaction type that will be moved. Select the sub-customer to convert to a project, then select Convert. This will let you or your client move the sub-customers, and QuickBooks Online will create new projects for them. Select Continue in the pop-up warning. Note this is a one-way conversion. Projects can't be converted back to sub-customers. A notification pops up to say that QuickBooks Online has made the conversion. To see the new project in the Projects Center, select Go to Projects. Is there another way you can convert sub-customers to projects? Yes, you or your client can do the conversion directly in the Projects Center. First, select Convert from Sub-Customer in the drop-down next to New Project. Then, in the Convert Sub-Customers to Projects screen, select the required sub-customer, then select Convert. Either conversion method will give the same result. Creating a project in the Projects Center. Clients can also add a project by creating one from scratch in the Projects Center. To do this, in the Projects Center, select New Project. Enter the project name. Select the project customer from the Customer drop-down. Add any notes or details about the project in Notes. Select Save. After they've created a project, they can add both new and existing transactions to the project. This is explained later in the lesson. Batch importing projects. Your client might want to import projects they track in another format, such as Excel, into QuickBooks Online. Although they can't import directly to projects, clients can import customers with projects listed as sub-customers, then convert the sub-customers to projects, as described above. To import customers, open the Sales Center and select the Customers tab. Then, in the New Customer drop-down, select Import Customers. Alternatively, select the gear icon, Import Data. Then, on the Import Data screen, choose Customers. Then follow the on-screen steps to upload an Excel or CSV file or connect to a file in Google Sheets. Note that a sample file is available to help ensure that you import data correctly. When uploading the file, make sure that the spreadsheet is formatted as parent, sub for the sub-customer to import correctly. Resources. For more information, check out this article on how to import customers to QuickBooks Online. Adding transactions to a project. Once your client has created a project, they can add transactions such as invoices, expenses, or estimates to it. There are 3 ways to add transactions to a project. Selecting the project when entering the transaction in QuickBooks Online. Creating a new transaction from the Projects Center. Assigning a project when adding a transaction in Bank Feeds. Select each method below to find out how to use it. Note that adding transactions to projects won't change how the transactions are categorized or affect your client's accounts. They're simply marking them as a part of the project so that they can track a specific project's income and expenses. Method 1. Selecting the project when entering the transaction. One way is to add the project when creating the transaction in QuickBooks Online. Just enter the project name in the customer column if it's a purchase transaction, or in the customer field for a sales transaction. Method 2. Creating a new transaction from the project center. To create a new transaction from the project center, select Projects from the left-hand navigation. Select the relevant project. Then from the Add to Project drop-down, select the right transaction type: invoice, receive payment, expense, estimate time, or bill. If the client enabled purchase orders, this will also appear as an option. 4. Fill out the details for the transaction as normal. The advantage of adding a transaction from within the project is that QuickBooks Online automatically adds the project name. If clients add a sales type of transaction, the name will be in the customer dropdown. If it's a purchase transaction, the name will be in the customer/project column in the category details or the item details grid. Note: when adding an expense, bill, or purchase order from the project center, clients need to select a line on the category details grid or the item details grid for the project name to appear. This is because QuickBooks Online doesn't know which grid your client will be using or if they'll use both grids. Method 3. Assigning a project when adding a transaction in bank feeds. Clients can also assign projects when adding transactions in bank feeds. To do this, they choose the project name from the customer/project dropdown. If the client wants to allocate an expense to multiple projects, they should select Split and divide the expense among the different projects. The Project Center Dashboard. One of the main advantages of using projects compared to sub-customers is the inclusion of the Project Center. This gives you and your client a snapshot view of the status of all their projects, as well as more detailed data on each individual project. Select each highlighted area on the Project Center dashboard to find out more. Project status and customer filters. These allow you to filter the list of projects by project status and/or customer name. The status filter options are: all statuses, in progress, completed, cancelled, snapshot view. The main area of the dashboard lists all the client's projects, with a simple status of each one's current income, costs, and profit margin. The Actions column on the right allows you or the client to edit the project, mark it completed, mark it cancelled, delete the project. Selecting a project from the list allows you or your client to view more detailed information about it, and to run reports on the project costs, expenses, and profitability. We'll cover this in the next section of the lesson. New project drop-down. This allows you or your client to create a new project or to convert one from a sub-customer. The Project Center Detail View. Select a project from the list on the Project Center dashboard to view the details of the project organized into 5 tabs. Select each tab title to find out more. Overview tab. In the Overview tab, clients can immediately view the profitability of the project, shown as income minus costs. Use the drop-down on the right to change the view to be based on hourly costs or payroll expenses, as shown below. We'll cover using hourly costs later in the lesson. The sections under the income and costs figures give a more detailed breakdown of how each total is calculated. Select each account, for example, cost of goods sold, to run a report showing all the relevant transactions. Transactions tab. The Transactions tab shows all the transactions associated with the project in one place. These include any transaction to which the project is assigned, including posting and non-posting transactions, and billable and non-billable transactions. Clients can filter this list for type and date so they can see, for instance, all open invoices for last month. Time Activity tab. The Time Activity tab provides details of work done on the project. It allows your client to drill down to see just who did what and when, how much it cost, and how this affects the project profitability. The View By and Group By drop-downs enable clients to change the arrangement of the data. If they choose to view by service, for example, the time can be grouped by week, month, or employee. This allows them to see how much an employee contributes to the cost of the project, as well as how much a particular service costs, no matter who provides it. The figures in the total cost column come from the hourly cost assigned to the employee. Data will only be shown here if the client is using time tracking and the hourly cost rates feature, and time is entered for the project. Project Reports tab. Here you or your client can run 3 essential reports. The Project Profitability Report provides the same details as a profit and loss by customer report, filtered for the project and showing all dates. It only shows posting transactions. So if your client is using hourly costs and isn't using QuickBooks Online Payroll, the Project Profitability Report won't include the cost of the employee's time because it is non-posting. The Time Cost by Employee or Vendor report breaks down all costs associated with every employee who has worked on the project. This report only contains data if your client is using time tracking and the hourly cost rates feature. The client also needs to have set up the hourly cost before the time was entered, otherwise this report will show $0 cost. The Unbilled Time and Expenses report lists all time and expenses that the client still needs to invoice for. Attachments tab. This tab allows you or your client to store and upload attachments related to the project. Note that attachments related to individual transactions for the project don't appear in this tab. Linking labor costs to a project. Labor costs are often the biggest component of overall costs for service and field-based businesses. Projects allow your clients to link labor costs to a specific project. To do this, specify cost rates to employees and use time tracking, assigning the project to the timesheet. The client must be tracking their time, but it doesn't matter whether they're using basic time tracking in QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Time, or a third-party time tracking app that integrates with QuickBooks Online. To link labor costs to a project in QuickBooks Online, first set the hourly cost rate for the employees, then enter time as normal and assign the project that's being worked on. Select each heading below to find out more. Set the employee's hourly cost rate. Enter employee time on the timesheet. What about QuickBooks Online Payroll? Set the employee's hourly cost rate. Start by setting the hourly cost rate for an employee. Go to the Project Center and select Hourly Cost Rate. In the Cost Rate column, add or edit the labor cost for the employees. Your clients can also use the calculator to work out the actual wage per hour. QuickBooks Online will calculate the Social Security/Medicare portion, and you or your clients can add other employer taxes, workers' compensation dollars per hour, and any other overhead. Enter employee time on the timesheet. When an employee is adding time via a single time activity or weekly timesheet, they should select the project from the customer drop-down field, as shown below. They then fill in the other necessary details as normal. Finally, they select Save and Close. What happens next? When the client is using hourly cost rates, QuickBooks Online will multiply the cost rate entered by the number of hours from the timesheets. It will show those costs on the project overview, provided that the client has selected the hourly costs view and any time reports. What about QuickBooks Online Payroll? If your client is using QuickBooks Online Payroll, the time entered will transfer to the paycheck and be allocated to the projects entered on the timesheet. Once the paychecks are created, clients can see the actual costs for earnings items and taxes by selecting payroll expenses on the project overview in the Project Center, as shown here. Projects FAQs. Here are some additional frequently asked questions about how the project's feature works and what it can do. Select the questions to see the answer. Can I move individual transactions into a project? Yes, but it's better to create the project first and add transactions to it later. This helps avoid problems with linked transactions. It also helps ensure that clients don't miss any transactions when they add them to the project. Moving purchase transactions. You or your client must do this manually. Open the transaction and change or assign the project in the Customer/Project column. If need be, split the expense, bill, or check across various projects by adding a line with the amount for each project and tagging that line to a project. Moving invoices. You or your client must be careful when doing this. Read this article to find out more about adding existing invoices to QuickBooks Online projects. Can I delete a project? Yes. However, you or your clients can't modify or delete any transactions linked to a deleted project. To delete a project, select Delete from the Options drop-down in the Action column. Can I restore, undelete, a deleted project? Yes, you can. Select the grid gear icon on the right side of Projects. Select the Show Deleted Projects checkbox and make sure the Actions box is also checked. The screen will now show any deleted projects. To undelete a project, open the Options drop-down in the Actions column. The choices are as follows. The best practice is to undelete and mark as complete, so you or your clients can still edit all the transactions. Can I add multiple projects to one invoice? Yes, you can. Because projects are automatically set to bill parent customer, clients can add billable charges from multiple projects onto one invoice for a customer. Your client might want to add all the billable charges for one project, add a subtotal, and then add billable charges for another project and add another subtotal to segregate them on the invoice. However, they can add a column for the project. So the client would need to add the project name to the description. What if your client isn't invoicing for time and materials for projects? It can look unprofessional to send multiple invoices to the same customer, one per project. To add multiple projects to one invoice for the customer, clients need to create delayed charges for each line item of the project they want to invoice. Let's look at an example. Rock Castle Construction wants to invoice for the design stage for multiple projects. The client creates one delayed charge for each project, then, when they invoice the customer, the delayed charges are added to the invoice. Again, as with other billable charges, the project name doesn't transfer onto the invoice, so the client will need to add it as part of the description. Another alternative would be to create an invoice for each project and enter the project name in the message on statement field. In the sales section of account and settings, enable list each transaction including all detail lines. Then create a transaction statement for the customer. Each invoice will be created with line item detail. The project is identified on the statement by the project name that was added to the message on statement field. In summary, learning outcomes. Well done. In this lesson, we covered using the project's functionality in QuickBooks Online Plus and Advanced. Knowledge recap. You can now help clients activate and create projects in QuickBooks Online, as well as advise them when they should use sub-customers or projects to track jobs. You can also show your clients how to link labor costs to a project so they can track profitability.